Ladies and gentlemen, President Paul Kagame of the Republic of Rwanda deserves a round of applause for making time to speak to us. As we said earlier on, first of all, thank you, Mr. Dara from RDB, for coming in and making a few introductory remarks. But as we said earlier on, this is a perfect way to start the expansion of Mindspeak. Kigali is a fantastic place to start because, by and large, Kigali is showing us how things are done. Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame, we thank you very much for making the time to grace this occasion. I would also like to say thank you very much to all the very senior members of the Rwandese government that have made time to speak, to be with us this afternoon. Honorable Foreign Minister, your presence is acknowledged. And the other senior officials, thank you very much. Again, as we were saying, Rwanda is setting the pace as far as East Africa is concerned, so we are here to learn from Rwanda because things are getting done in Rwanda. And that is something that we can all learn from. And I also want to say thank you very much on behalf of those of us who are joining us, not just on the internet and watching the live feed, that President Paul Kagame, like no other leader in the world, is engaging us. And on social media, like no other leader in the world, is directly answering our questions. And that is something that is indeed a pace setter. So we've got to say thank you very much to President Kagame for that. And that's what we're here to do today, to engage, to learn from each other, to speak to each other. So let's open our minds up for that. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Ali Khan Sachu. Mr. Ali Khan Sachu is the founder of Mindspeak. He studied it in Nairobi with the help of his wife, who we will be introducing to you shortly. And he is also the owner of Rich Investment, which you will see over there, and rich.co.ke is the website to see, to check out the profile of the company. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ali Khan Sachu to introduce the President.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame. Thank you, all ministers present from the Rwanda government. Thank you to the High Commissioner, William Kayonga. I thank also the CEO, John Gara, of the Rwanda Development Board for inviting us here and taking such great care of us, and to all the distinguished panelists and participants. My name is Ali Khan Sachu. I'm the CEO of rich.co.ke. We started this journey more than 3 years ago in Nairobi at the junction. And the business club, it gives me great pride to be here 3 years down the road for President Kagame to have invited us. He's effectively taken us Pan-African. And therefore, it's a great privilege to be here at this moment. I came across President Kagame because Alan told me one day, Ali Khan, tweet the president. And I tweeted the president, and I could not believe I got a response. And then I found every time I would hear the president on the radio, I was agreeing with him. I found myself one day in my car driving in the traffic jam, and the president was speaking about North Africa and what was happening, and I was shaking my head. And I tweeted him again. And then we continued this conversation, and last Thursday, his team said, Ali Khan, are you ready to come to Kigali? And we essentially put this together in the last week or so. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to make my presentation. Sorry. Can we give them 2 minutes to organize it? 2 minutes? And why I'm so enthused by being here is we have so many leaders on our continent, but you know, we have few who are really in the 21st century in the way and the shape and the manner that the President of Rwanda is. if I can just tell you briefly about myself, I'm from Mombasa. I lived in London for many years, and I came back, and I called my website Rich. And everybody said to me, why are you calling it Rich? And I said to myself, the reason I'm calling it Rich is because I believe the continent is an incredibly rich continent. And I believe that if we believe in ourselves, we're going to drive this continent forward. I came back 5 years ago because I have 150% conviction that this moment in our history will only come once. People talk about the likes of JP Morgan 100 years ago creating these enormous businesses all across the African continent. That moment, I believe, is here for us. And I wanted to be back in the middle of it as it happened. Nothing has changed my mind about that. I am certain of it. But I also believe that it's going to happen at a different speed in different places. So essentially, I think what excites me about being here is I think the quality of leadership is so high. And I'm going to talk about this because it looks as if my presentation is coming up in a minute. But I think the difference between having a 21st century leader who is engaging with the rest of with anybody and everybody is going to accelerate this country's convergence with the world. And I think you are very fortunate. Yesterday I went round the Memorial Center, and I remember reading comments and criticisms about this and that, and I think unless people have been to that Memorial Center, they cannot speak about Rwanda. Why should they? What do they know about what happened? And I looked, and then I was walking around and I was thinking to myself, in 17 short years, after such incredible events, we're standing here and we're talking about the future. And the title of my presentation is called that the future is not seen in the rear-view mirror. If you look backwards, you're not going to see what is coming. Thank you. Sorry. The future is not seen in the rear-view mirror. This is Africa. I think this photograph is very famous. It was in The Economist. And the headline was, Africa, the Dark Continent. And I just wanted to show you, because I think we've flicked a switch. When that switch was flicked was in the last few years. And that's what's making me very excited about the continent. This idea came to me. I was in Turkey, and I was visiting a place called Konya. And in Konya is a mausoleum for a very famous Sufi saint. And as I was walking in this mausoleum, I found this written at the entrance. And it said, "Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair." It said ours is a caravan of hope. Come even if you have broken your vow 100 times. Come, come again, come. And it lifted my soul, and I found it exciting to walk in there. And I walked away, and I remembered this. And I wanted to create a place where anybody could come, anybody could bring their talent, and we would create something which was much bigger than the sum of its parts. And when I came into Rwanda and I met the president's people, and the quality of the president is seen in his team. The team is incredible. And people say to me, but Rwanda does not have natural resources. And I said to them, the future of Africa is not what can be dug from the ground. It is what walks upon it, like you people. And I thought to myself, what is the president of Rwanda doing? He's inviting people, just like Rumi, to come and join him and build this country. And that invitation is a fantastic thing. Can I go one more? You know, I'm an economist. I study markets. And I want to just share one other thing with you. Apple was the most incredible company. But in 1997, they put out this advert. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, they have no respect for the status quo, and they have no you can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Can I go to the next one? And that is the economic value since 1997. That's the share price of Apple. So when I look at Rwanda, I think to myself, President Kagame is trying to build an Apple. A hugely successful thing. And it can be done. I believe it can. And that's why I wanted to show you this chart. You know, we've all come here, I think, from Kenya. There are about 14 of us. And I think we're not going to be your salesmen. We're going to be your evangelists. And I think that's what you have triggered. That is the mood you have. You know, we have people here to whom you are a rock star. And why is that? Because of the power of your pull. And just to give you some ideas, just like Rwanda, people say, oh, this is not going to happen, this is the story. And I just wanted to share with you what people have said about other things. For example, the chairman of IBM in 1943 said there is a world market for maybe 5 computers. Look at it today. There is no reason why anyone would want a computer in their home. 1977. Can I go to the next one? So I'm here. Mine is a caravan of hope, like I saw at the feet of Nelson Mandela. I believe this is our time. I believe this is our future. And I believe what we're going to build is what we want to dream we want to build. Little bit of background. So last year, Alan told me, tweet the president. And I tweeted President Kagame. And that's the genesis of how I arrived here. And when I received the response, I was worried it was going to be a response from somebody other than the president. But then as I read the messages, I realized it was yourself doing it. And for that, I give you a round of applause. Because you have flattened our continent. You've made the earth flat. Today, you can reach out to anybody. And you are living proof of that fact. The power of pull. The reason I wanted to bring up this was because if you look at the size of Rwanda, it's not the biggest country in Africa. If you look at the GDP, it's not the biggest GDP. And I think that what Rwanda is creating and what Rwanda has is the 21st century power of pull. You know, people say serendipity, which means luck. I believe you can shape your luck. You can be at the right place at the right time because you put yourself in that place. Most of us believe luck serendipity is luck. I don't believe so. I think you can shape that environment. How can you shape your luck? While chance is an intrinsic element of serendipity, we believe that you can significantly alter the probability and the quality of unexpected encounters in our lives. And I think the fact that Mindspeak has arrived here is an exact example of what I'm talking about. Where we spend our time, particularly in virtual environments, right? Who we spend our time with, and that is exactly what has happened here. And while the world is getting flatter due to technology, people are watching this all over the world on a live stream, you can actually create the environment which makes things happen. And I think this is a perfect example of trying to create a new environment where we can make things happen. And this is ultimately the power of pull. And I think and I'm not flattering you, but I think you're clear evidence, the best evidence I can find on the African continent of this concept, the power of pull. I think you've pulled us all here. And you don't have to have big resources in the 21st century. You've got to have intellectual capital. And that is essentially what I think you're proof of. I look around, I see countries with billions of dollars in the ground. But are they pulling anybody like President Kagame has pulled people today? And it allows you to pull resources and efforts out of people. You don't just need financial leverage. And I think that, again, this is evidence of that. And finally, I wanted to share with you some statistics about David and Goliath. This is a very famous chap called Malcolm Gladwell. He's well worth reading if you ever get a chance. And he says that so often Davids win. They have no right to win, but they win. And it's scientifically proven. When David plays the game that Goliath has chosen him to play, he doesn't win. He loses. And in David's victory over Goliath in the biblical account is not actually an exception. It's quite often the rule. Davids win all the time. And if you look at the wars in the last 200 years between the strong and the weak, you'll find that Goliath won 71.5%. David won 28.5%. And when David changed the game, he won much more often. And I think you've changed the game. I really do. And I think you're going to win. And I want to be part of that winning team. Can I turn? That's good. Can you go to the next one? Okay. And basically, I think this is evidence, Mindspeak is evidence of it, I think the Republic of Rwanda is evidence of it, and I think you are evidence of it. That really, if we change the way we play the game, we are going to start to win and win big. And we have everything in our power to do that. And therefore today, I feel especially privileged to have the one figure who I think has the power of the pull, who has shown consistently he can change the way the game is played, who can press, and who can really, really make a difference on this continent. And therefore, I'm going to conclude at this point and say to President Kagame, thank you for giving me this opportunity. The floor is yours.
This is yours. Good. Hello, good afternoon. When I want to win, I speak from my heart, not from a written speech. So I came here just to speak from my heart. I had a speech written for me, and I looked at it. I thought it wasn't for this audience. It was. So, first of all, I welcome you all. I'm happy that we meet here this afternoon. I want to thank Ali Khan and the team here at the podium and all of you. Alan Kasuja, Master of Ceremonies, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. An opportunity to have a conversation. a conversation that brings all of us together, government officials, entrepreneurs, the youth, many people with different backgrounds, and all people that matter in our development, in our quest for peace and prosperity, are represented here, one way or the other. With this, I will say the story of Rwanda, which is very closely tied with or linked with the story of Africa or East Africa, is an intriguing story with many aspects to it. In the story of Rwanda, you find turbulent, tragic episodes. You find good aspects of that story too, because of the resilience of the people of Rwanda. And as the proverb goes, here in Rwanda, even through the fire, the truth remains intact. So we've gone through turbulent times, tragic histories, but the truth about Rwanda, and that is Rwandans, they have remained who they are. Earlier on, Alice talked about the vilification, the glorification of this story of and or about Rwanda. It's true, you find these two chapters or parts of the story of Rwanda. We have a number of people who verify us or the story of Rwanda. We are not short of that. We have many who appreciate and think highly of the story of Rwanda. But it is always going to be the total sum of this that will define who we are. You put all that together, you'll end up having who we are. And in fact, we build on that to be who we want to be. So the journey continues about who we want to be. Again, Ali was right. It's not about the so-called natural resources. Our main asset and resource is our people, the young people. The rest of us make up this indispensable resource of this country and by extension of the wider continent of Africa. So the story in a way of Rwanda is no doubt closely linked with the story of the whole of Africa. And whatever we are trying to do for ourselves, we always bear in mind that we are not an island. We have to work with and feel that we are part of our continent. That's why we think highly of the efforts to bring our East African community together. I mean the people, the very people of Burundi, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. We are a family, whether we want it or not. That's the truth of the matter. We sometimes think about ourselves differently, or think we are different, or for that matter, so different from each other that it even creates some problems where by being different from one another, people think they have nothing to do with each other, instead of really finding that brings us together, and we build on it for the prosperity of our nations. But I think, again, it's about leadership, it's about attitudes, it's about what we really intend to achieve for ourselves, what is the whole purpose of our being, and what do we want to do about it. So all of you here, especially the young people that I know we are talking to in majority tonight, I invite you to think seriously about what we want to be, about what we stand to achieve, and then simply do what needs to be done. And we are the ones to do it. And then achieve that we deserve and move on. That which is taken for granted by many other people of other nations, and I cannot see why we Rwandans or we East Africans or we Africans cannot achieve that and take it for granted. So the challenge is yours. The challenge is for all of us. And we have everything in our hands to achieve what we want to achieve for ourselves, even if it means fighting different battles that we have to fight. I think it is better to be there for ourselves, to fight these battles, than stay back and not achieve being what we deserve to be. So on this note, let me stop here and leave enough time for the wider conversation that we are going to engage in. And I will be happy to continue playing my part in this conversation. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for a true African statesman, President Paul Kagame. Okay, so today we will have a conversation with the President, like he said. The conversation is going to be made up of questions to be put to him by the panelists, and then of course we shall open up a few questions to the floor as well. The panelist is made up of various people drawn from both Rwanda and the region. We have Amin Gafaranga, who is a 32-year-old businessman Amin is sitting right up next to the president. He runs 2 coffee shops in Kigali, and he's done very well for himself. We also have a gentleman called Albert Kinuma, who is the acting general manager for MTN Business right here in Kigali, and he's in charge of the Village Fund project as well as mobile money. We've got Madame Alphonsine, and the rest of her name is in handwriting, which is my excuse. But she is a very enterprising Rwandan lady. She works as the first vice chairperson of the Rwanda Private Sector Federation, and she's a financial consultant by profession. Amongst her businesses are 4 beauty centers all over Kigali. Now, we also have Ida Kimoli. Ida here is one of the most brilliant East African men that I've met. I've known him for quite a while. I remember when he was working for JP Morgan in England, and he later worked for Actis, and he is now working for TransCentury. TransCentury, amongst other things, is trying to revive the East African Railway, and he's a man that will definitely offer a lot of guidance to many young people. And I'd also like to introduce to you a gentleman called Suraj Shudakar, and he works as the East African Fellows Manager at Achievement Fund, an organization that wants to create the world beyond poverty by investing in social enterprises. So a round of applause to our esteemed panelists. And each of these panelists has an opportunity to ask President Kagame a question. I'm going to ask, it's only good manners that the guest starts. I'm sure you don't mind that, do you? No, they don't mind it at all. Our hosts from Rwanda don't mind it at all. So I'm going to ask you, Suraj, to start off by asking President Kagame a question of your choice.
Thank you. Mr. President, if I may, the way I see the world, and apologize for probably simplifying it to a large extent, but there is this one scene, the financial crisis happened, there are lots of things that are a cause for despair in the world. But at the same time, you're seeing the youth around the world, have the energy and have the intention to really build a better world for everybody. So to push the conversation beyond Rwanda, beyond East Africa and the world, I would like to know what is your vision for the world and what kind of leadership is going to get us there.
Well, thank you. The global financial crisis is not the first crisis the world has seen, and maybe it's not going to be the last. The world and the people of this world have been going through many crises, and each with a different cause, and in the end, different effect. But in order for us to understand our role, or everybody's role, and for that matter, the youth who form the majority that may be affected, or at the same time, the ones that may be looked to for the required solutions for some of these crises, given their energy, their ingenuity, the different things that place them at the center of being affected by the problems, or where they can actually be the ones to play a significant role in dealing with these problems. This will start with defining the problem and understanding the cause of the problem. And the financial crisis starts from one place and spreads across the rest of the world, which in fact is a very clear reminder that the world, after all, is interconnected, because that's why it happens in one place and spreads the rest of the world. In the same way, since we are interconnected, it may also mean, and is a clear fact, that we may therefore at the same time be interdependent. We may be dependent on each other. Now, if we understand what the problems are in one place and how they have come to spread to other places, and again it's about people. How do people deal with the problems sometimes they have been a part of or they have created, and yet they should be the ones at the same time to find answers to these problems. So it really, it's a wake-up call to all of us that there is a reality here, and we have to look to each other for solutions as much as we have shared the effects of the different problems. So the youth, therefore, should, as they are going to be most affected, or at the same time, they should be thinking about how they become part of the solution and a major part of the solution. And it starts with them. It starts with that attitude that they can be a solution and not a problem. At the same time, it is not just a matter of the youths alone. It's also about those who shape the environment in which the youths grow or are active. To the point, therefore, it comes to the heart of the question you raised about the leadership. Leadership meaning at different levels. It is either government, it is business, and it is from the top down to the bottom. There are different layers and levels of leadership, and each layer and each level of leadership has to play its part depending on our different responsibilities. And to find the leadership that finds the right solutions, therefore, it has to be the leadership that thinks about defining properly the problem, thinks about this interconnection that exists between these different levels and different parts of the world. It also has to be a leadership that thinks about how we depend on each other and can work with each other for the common good and avoid what affects us negatively. So it's a broad question, but different players, depending on how they play out their different roles, will either lead to a solution or lead to complicating the problem that may be already complicated enough, like some of the problems we have seen. And it is that philosophical understanding that, in our case, in Rwanda, has also shaped the way we have tried to realistically deal with our problems, which we know are not just confined to Rwanda. They are problems that have connection with the rest of the region, the continent, and the rest of the world.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much for that, President Kagame. And Ida knows one or two things about connectivity. His company, TransCentury, has taken out a very huge investment. You put a very huge investment into the railway that actually connects East Africa. Now, as you think about that question, I'd be very interested to hear from you what role you see that railway line playing in ensuring that East Africa remains connected. As you ask the President the question, I'd like you to comment very briefly on that particular aspect of connectivity.
TransCentury owns 34% of the railway concession that connects the port of Mombasa all the way through to western Uganda, which is clearly one of the most important transport routes, not just for Kenya and Uganda, but also all the way through Rwanda, including Burundi, and into eastern DRC. I think for us, a lot of people ask us, was this a viable investment? We still get criticized a lot, even amongst even the investing community. They ask us something that you should be doing. For us, it's a very simple story. Today, as we speak, there are 19 million tons of cargo at the port of Mombasa. We only transport 1.5 million tons of that cargo on the rail. What is even sadder is if you look at the road, and I want to say that the entire connection from Mombasa going all the way inland, it is virtually single carriageway the whole way through. So, you know, this backbone of the railway is a critical need for all of us in the region. And when we talk amongst directors, amongst management, it's a big pledge for us to make this work and to reduce the cost of business for everyone. My own personal test for when we are successful is not even going to be how much of the 19 million tons we move, but what industry we will see emerging that we never saw before. But I think maybe in the spirit of that question, I mean, the question I'd like to put to the President is really one around where I would say if you were asked to prioritize maybe 1 or 2 or 3 projects that you would say are the most critical to setting Rwanda on the path that it wants to be on, and maybe even the broader community, which projects would those be?
Well, there are many projects, and in fact, unfortunately for Rwanda, we find we have so many priorities coming at the same time. We have no luxury of just saying, let's deal with one, the other one will come later. We've always been in that unfortunate and challenging position where problems come at the same time and we've got to deal with all of them at the same time. In fact, that's how we started rebuilding our country from 1994. It was security, it was the economy, it was different social needs coming all at the same time. And at times we found we had a problem of prioritizing because everything was a priority, and that became more challenging. But back to the question right now, when we've seen where we have come from and we now have peace, we have stability, governance structures are in place, institutions, and different policies, programs, on a good footing, and that's fine. So at the end of it, we have 2 challenges that we have to deal with. Some are in the area of physical infrastructure that really have to support all these activities we want to engage in. And the other is the soft infrastructure, the kind of, it comes together with, skills, that has a huge gap as we see it today. Then the soft infrastructure in terms of, the regulations, the laws, the different kinds of systems that will help us deliver on the different services and requirements. So if I may quickly go back to, therefore, in terms of physical infrastructure, you talked about the railway infrastructure. That is key for us. I mean, it is very clear, it is self-evident. Rwanda being landlocked will require us to rethink the whole model of how we've been managing our economy and different things. For example, if you look at you talked about the tonnage of things that have to be carried out. Our imports, exports, all going, say, through Mombasa. And if you think about the difficulties of, transporting all these goods to and from Mombasa by trucks, the implication of that and the cost of it ends up translating into the cost of life in many aspects here in Rwanda, and that takes it a little bit high. In comparative terms, if you look at what happens here and what happens in some of our neighboring countries, you find, therefore, it becomes more expensive for us and more difficult for us. And the speed of delivery of different services, therefore, is also delayed and adding to the cost. But a railway, for example, through from Kenya and Uganda to here, or we are already thinking about and working on the possibility of railway infrastructure through Tanzania, which means given alternative routes of this kind certainly would create simplification of some of the, or alleviation of some of the difficulties we face in that area. The other, that is in the infrastructure, the other most important thing that is there for us is in the area of energy. Provision and generation of electricity for the benefit of our citizens is number one. Not only to citizens as families or individuals, but also to industries. That is key, and there is a big gap in our ability to provide this utility and the actual need and our ambition we have in this area. So I would really talk about infrastructure needs that are there, and then I would talk about the projects in the area of the capacity, skills, and knowledge to bring what we are doing and together and achieving our different goals.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I've got to say that I've found that very many Rwandans that I've worked with, I'm working with a couple of them, people like Lucy Mbabazi, in trying to help Uganda find solutions for our specific challenges in Uganda. And I've found that there is incredible talent in Rwanda, and that's something that's worth noting. If I may move on to you, Amin, as a Rwandan businessman with businesses in Kigali, you have 2 coffee shops. East Africa is made up of millions of people who are now learning how to drink coffee, which they've been growing for a very long time. For a long time we grew it but didn't know what to do with it, but we're learning how to consume it. Are you finding opportunities, or do those opportunities exist in the greater East Africa for you to extend your businesses, and is that something that you'd think about? Briefly, if you can comment on that before asking the President the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, in terms of coffee, there's different ways that you can sell coffee. So there are people that export it as raw coffee or washed, and there are people that, and what we're doing, we're selling coffee, the experience behind the coffee. So you can't sell coffee on its own. That's what you have to understand when you do retail, that you have, it's the whole context of what you're selling coffee. It's an experience, it's a meeting space, it's a social place, and definitely the way that the success of the business and where that we're developing the business is that it feels within the local context. So we can see that working in East Africa as well. We're actually currently looking at the Ugandan market. So if all goes well, it should be good. My question, Mr. President, it's a brief one, but I have a little bit of background to the question. So if you just bear with me, so that I say why. I'm a product designer, and I also work as a communication strategist. And in my line of work, there are a couple of things that I notice, that we always deal with markets. And when people talk about African markets, obviously we're talking about, as you pointed out earlier, we're talking about people, and we're talking about culture. We're talking about the specific and unique trends in Africa, as well as its unique context. So it all starts with people when people talk about market in Africa. So, and this it's not just in Africa. When we look at many countries, every country is known for specific things. For example, Japan are known for a distinctive way of doing business, which has allowed them to gain sort of a global market edge, but at the same time remaining true to remaining relevant at home. The US took it even further. And now the culture, it's the second largest export in the US. And it's not just culture that makes a business, actually culture opens up, the US culture, the American way of doing things opens up businesses for American businesses. In Rwanda, we've tapped into that as well, as you all know. Our traditions and our unique way of doing things have informed and influenced some of the things in reconciliation and justice like Gacaca. They've also influenced some of the great ideas like Ubudehe in agriculture. The interesting thing is that we haven't seen much of our culture influencing the way we do business. And my question to you, Mr. President, is what are the key steps the business community will need to take in order to use our culture, to use our people, to define our own way of doing things, in order to innovate in businesses and influence exports to other markets and attract investments at home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, our traditional values have informed a number of ways in which we do different things, which you've already mentioned. And I appreciate your idea that this should also be the same in the area of business. Business, whether it is services industry or different industries that constitute this business. I believe that whether it is in Ubudehe or Umuganda, or even if you look at Gacaca, or there are always two aspects to it that will help us achieve what we may want to achieve. One, it has to be in the area of attitude, and attitude bringing into play appreciation of quality. Quality is key, is very important. Number two, other than quality, we are talking about volume, because the two, when they come together, probably they deliver what you intend to achieve. You achieve profitability, but you want to be proud that the profits were made on the basis that improved somebody's, or on the basis that you achieved delivering what was good, therefore in the area of quality, as in some cases, in fact some people have developed this idea of shared value. Shared value meaning I get my profit in my business, but as I get it, it is benefiting somebody else, and as that benefits more people, so does my profits increase as well. So it seems we are benefiting all around. We are benefiting in terms of profits you're making, but you're also benefiting by benefiting others, and as many as that can reach. So one thing I would emphasize quickly to our people, whether in Rwanda and the East African area, is that appreciation, that attitude, that mentality, that culture that we have to develop of not wanting to cut corners and shortcuts and get things somehow by tricks, and we want as much as we can, even if we deliver nothing in the end. So I think these two should be closely tied, and reality should be, and I think we can find traces of even that kind of concept in our traditions, in our understanding. So we can bring that out and build on it, even in modern ways. I think we still can build on these traditions, but there are certain principles, there are some of these elements that we have to stick to. If you people in the construction industry, if you want to build a house, I think you just don't put blocks together and in the end you charge as much as you want. You want to build a nice house for somebody who will pay highly for it, and it's good for you, it's good for the person who gets the house, but you don't want to end up in arguments and fights over why should I pay you so much when you've done so poorly what was supposed to be done. And sometimes the culture here, I think we need to work on it. We want to be paid so much for even not doing so well what was expected of us. So I think if we keep our minds thinking about this, then we can make inroads and bring these cultural values to work for us, as well as blend this with the modern attitudes for the good results where the giver and the taker all live when they are happy.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. President. Just to remind you, prepare yourselves to ask questions, because soon we shall be coming to you for your questions. We shall also be asking questions that were posted on YouTube to His Excellency the President, and we shall also be asking questions that were posted on Twitter. Now, I'd like to bring Alphonsine in and ask Alphonsine about, she's about to ask the President a question. She's a finance consultant and a businesswoman in Rwanda. What is it like to do business in Rwanda, very briefly, as a woman, as you get ready to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks so much. First of all, I'm very proud to be on this high table as the only lady. But also there are so many ladies in this audience. Doing business in Rwanda, it is somehow challenging. As a woman, we've been given so many opportunities. Strategies, policies are in favor for us. But the only question we need to ask ourselves, are we taking opportunities and making use on these opportunities, on this advantage? I think we need to work on this. Sorry for my English. I'm not
it's
very.
Perfect.
I think I'm not very perfect in English, but I'm going to try to make me understood. So my question is normally I don't ask so many questions. I have solutions. I'm trying to bring in solutions.
That's a Rwandan culture. Yes.
Thanks so much. But because I have to ask a question, let me do it. Mr. President, if you were asked to do or to start a business in this country, what would you do? In which sector? In which sector?
What business would I do?
In which sector would you invest your money? I'm not asking this question just to pick your idea before you start it. Because as they said, I'm a very enterprising woman. But I'm sure this audience among them a great number of youth. They would like to understand your advice on how to really run a business in this country. Thank you very much.
Well, soon when I retire, I may join you in your business. But seriously, I think doing business anywhere may be challenging, indeed, depending on where you are coming from and what business you want to do. But in Rwanda, that's why we have focused. We have tried to make doing business easier. First of all, you have to have an idea. If you want to do business, you want to think of the idea. Sometimes you want to do business relating to areas where you have passion, or the areas that you understand very well. Or first of all, the idea drives you in a certain area of business, and your passion may also drive you there, and the combination of the two. Then, the second is you are looking at the possibilities you have to start that kind of business, whether it is in terms of financing and so on and so forth. And you have also surveyed the market. You know what that means for you when you start that business, and so on and so forth. So for me, what I may want to invest in today may change maybe 2 years from now, depending on the different developments that you may experience, or things that may develop over time. So, but you have to start with understanding that doing business, being an entrepreneur, is very good. First of all, it gives satisfaction. It empowers you. It broadens your thinking, and actually challenges your thinking. And I think this exercise, that is both mental and physical, is probably something everybody would want to experience. So, one, I start with saying I would love to do business. In fact, that's why even before I am into it directly, I try to run my politics as a business. So then later on, when I start slowing down in politics, then I will be stepping up my involvement in business.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Someone once commented that President Kagame runs Rwanda like a very effective CEO. The jobs are done, the services are delivered, and that's a very big credit to you, sir. I don't know if the president has actually told us which business he would set up.
I said the business I have in mind today may change 1 year after. So.
He's being very fluid.
Yeah, I think he knows that Alphonsine is sitting there, and she said she's an enterprise.
Right now, I'm running the business of politics, of doing politics.
Okay, thank you very much for that, President Kagame. Now, Albert, Acting General Manager, MTN Business, and he handles specifically village phones as well as the mobile money project. How important are those two projects as far as the progress of Rwanda is concerned, as you prepare to ask the President the question?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the first project, the village phone project, was a project that MTN set up in order to promote telecommunication in rural areas and also fighting poverty. So in the 4 years we had this program, we managed to deploy 7,000 phones across the country, serving communities of about 500 people. So that was pretty successful for, especially for the business owners, as it became the source of livelihood and the source of communication for the villages or, where these operators were working from. For mobile money, this is a new initiative which MTN launched. We launched about a year ago. And this has proven to be very successful. I mean, the uptake from people has been very enthusiastic. And it's because this service really serves a need in the market in terms of how money is moved across the country in an efficient and secure manner. So this is why, how we managed to have about 300,000 people connected on the service, with about 400 agents who are helping us promote the service in different parts of the country. So my question, I think, is on the concept of partnerships. A lot of the success that we see in our business as a telecommunication company is based on the partnership that we're able to create on the ground. We're only as successful as the partners we are working with, be it rural entrepreneurs or any other businesses in the country. So I wanted to transpose it on a nation level and the way countries interact amongst the partnership that we have with different countries. So my question is, are you satisfied with the pace of integration and partnership that are being fostered in the region and Africa in general? And do you see a place where the business world should play a role and be more active to assist in that process?
Very good. Let me start by the partnership that is national. In Rwanda, we encourage public-private partnership. This is the key. As different people in the private sector may be partners, and in the public sector may be, we want to have these two sectors broadly forging a partnership. That is what strengthens the foundation on which the nation wants to build its economy. But on the same model, you want to see nations forging a partnership, like we want to see the East African Community partner state actually come together as indeed it would be to have this one entity brought about by a strong partnership to shape the East African community. But even within the East African community itself, you again find it's not just governments forging partnerships, it is businesses, it's again businesses and governments working in a partnership. And this is the real solid ground on which our strength should be built. So we are finding increasingly the people of East Africa working together, and even beyond. It's not, we in fact, in a much broader context, we are seeing different regional economic communities coming together again in a form of strong partnership to forge single entities that and big entities that would bring all the elements that are key for integration coming together, whether it is East African Community or COMESA and the SADC. We are already involved in a process where these three regional economic communities are trying to forge one a wider entity or finding a formula in which we can cooperate and work together. It's again, you find these layers of partnerships being forged. But the most outstanding, which is even ahead of other levels, is you find the people across the region in business, in economic activities, actually, moving ahead of every other aspect of integration. When we have been delaying or debating or asking all sorts of questions about even the East African community, the integration process, in fact, you find business people are already far ahead in the process. You find it is politics that is lagging behind and trying to catch up. Sometimes the influence of these partnerships working together is very fundamental, especially to doing business, and I think people are more attracted to that. Even the peasants find what is common. You find people across borders working together and only have to be reminded by some of these government officials that they have crossed a certain line for them which doesn't exist in their mind, but you find it is the immigration officer or the policeman or this and that reminding the ordinary citizen. For them, they really don't mind. You find Rwandans crossing into Congo, Congolese crossing into Rwanda. They are not bothered about these things until we bother them with it. So I think what we are involved in is try to also, at the government level, which would be useful if to facilitate that for business and for the ordinary people's lives. If we could get our act together also to resolve that.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We're having this conversation earlier on today. We agreed that the East Africans, the really true East Africans, live on the borders because they marry, one man has a family here, the next one in the other country, and it doesn't really matter. Thank you very much for that. We've got to give a round of applause to our panelists and also to President Kagame for responding to those questions ever so effectively. Now, we're going to open the questions. Again, just so you know, President Kagame has a YouTube page where there are certain questions that were posted there, and when they were posted, everybody was given an opportunity to vote for 2 questions. We shall be reading out those 2 questions shortly so that President Kagame can respond to them. In the meantime, any questions from the floor? Terianne Chebet is putting up her hand. Anybody else? Eve D'Souza is, and also, I won't mention his Twitter handle, but he's one of President Kagame's biggest supporters. I can see him there as well. So let's start with you, Terianne Chebet, and then come to Eve, and you, the man who calls himself something after a beer. He's somewhere here. Let's start with you, Terianne.
Thank you very much. My name is Terianne Chebet. I'm a business journalist from Kenya. I'd like to find out, I was reading a bit about your vision 2020, and you're just about halfway past that mark. And I'm curious because you say for Rwanda to go to be a middle-income country by 2020, you need to shift from an agriculture-based society to a knowledge-based society. And I'm curious because you have a project called the One Cow Per Poor Home, which can or indirectly push for subsistence farming, but it is also on the other side a high-impact poverty eradication program. So I want to find out, how do you strike that balance, and how do you pull in the poor into a knowledge-based economy by 2020?
Oh, good. You see, as we try to diversify, at the same time, since what we had was agriculture and subsistence agriculture, not developed. We are not talking about abandoning agriculture and completely, in a very short time, and going into a different way, direction. What we are talking about is maximizing on what we can have in agriculture, develop it to the extent that we can develop it, because it has not been developed. So we want to reach the full potential of our agriculture for two basic reasons. One, we want to also address the food security problem. So we want to make sure that our people can put food on their tables. And at the same time, in the area of agriculture, we also want to make it economically viable, and make sure that if we modernize agriculture, if we monetize agriculture, then it is going to benefit our people at the same time through exports and so on and so forth. And if we add value, therefore, this is certainly going to contribute to the incomes of the ordinary Rwandans. They are actually faster than even what we are diversifying into, because that is already something that exists that we can build on, and that is already something that is affecting the majority of our people and impacts highly on their lives. That's one. So we are really moving on to push it to the limit, to reach the full potential with all the benefits. But while doing that, we are also diversifying indeed and building on this very important asset I was talking about, the human capital. And that's why we invest in health, making sure that we have a healthy population. That's why we invest in education all through, and making and providing education to all Rwandans throughout, primary to higher education. At the same time, within education, that's why we're investing in vocational and training institutions, so that this absorbs many who would be there in the labor market as required. So it is not as difficult the way we look at it. It's not either or, that you either invest in agriculture and abandon investing in acquiring these skills, or driving the economy by building a wide knowledge base. No, it's both, and each has its contribution towards reaching our goals of the Vision 2020. And we're already seeing coming close to that, because we're envisaging having a middle income status for people by 2020 that was around $900,000 per capita. We are already closing in on 600, and we are having 9 years to go, so it's not bad, but we can even do better. We need to invest more of our time and efforts and planning and making sure we are where we want to be. So really that is how it is. It doesn't conflict. We are trying to use all possible ways and build on all possibilities that we have out there, and maximize on the value of all processes and assets we have in place.
Thank you very much. I'm sure President Kagame meant 900, not 900,000.
$900. $900. Did I say 900,000? No.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Let me have Eve.
That's not too bad either. I think we can keep raising the bar to. So I meant 900 $1,000 per head.
Thank you for clarifying that, sir.
Okay. Thank you, President Kagame, for allowing us to be here. And of course, RDB and the people of Rwanda, we've had such an amazing time. It's going to be very difficult for us to go back home tomorrow. I'm from Kenya. My name is Eve D'Souza. I'm a media personality, and I run my own business, Moonbeam Productions. And one thing that has stood out for me, this is my first time in Rwanda. It's very frustrating in Kenya because the youth have been crying to be heard. You know, we want to be heard, we want to be taken seriously when it comes to leadership roles. And we're always told, well, with age comes wisdom. With age comes experience. Looking at your age, you have none. So it's more like being patted on the head and being told, bas, 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 bas. You know what? Huh? Mommy and daddy know best, so you keep quiet and do as we say. And I come here and I look at your team and people who work for you in your government, and they are remarkably young, and they are part of an amazing process, and it's incredible. It really is. So I think the question I have on behalf of Kenyans is, are we being lied to? What is the truth? Can the youth actually take part in leadership roles and be effective? Or, for you, and you can be honest, has it been a disaster working with young people? What is the truth?
Yeah, it hasn't been a disaster, at least. That I can confirm. You see, for us, a number of things have come together in a way that has helped us, much as some of it has impacted negatively on our country and so on. But for every cloud, there is a silver lining as well. So we always even look for this. But sometimes you don't have to have problems in order to get things right or to understand things better. If it can be avoided, so much the better. But the difficulties we have passed through and you know, in our history and so on, have formed very good lessons for us, and we've not wasted time learning these lessons and building on them. Why I'm saying this is, in fact, the majority of our people are the youth. We find the under 25 form 65% of our population. Under 25. So that is a reality. We can't ignore. Now, if we wanted to all rely on the 35 to deliver everything for us, we may run into problems, serious problems. So even this alone has pushed us to think of making taking these opportunities, this otherwise seemingly a challenge in the language you used, where age, the old versus the young, and the wisdom and the lack of experience, and so we've tried to find what we can build on best, even with the young. And that's why when we found that when they are challenged, they are given responsibilities, they have, many of them probably carried them out as well as these responsibilities should have been carried out. So well, but there are certain things. It is really not entirely black and white. You can have people of old age indeed with very good experience that we need around, and there will be wisdom that comes with age, no doubt. I think I'm beginning to experience that. So I can be a witness. But while you have this, that's okay. But it should also be okay to say, even with the young people, there is a lot in them that we need to build on now, not tomorrow. You see what I mean? Yes, there is growing up with responsibility, and why not? Why not allow the young people to take their leadership roles, even for tomorrow, but start doing that today? I don't see any contradiction. If anything, it would serve a very good purpose for all of us. It's like the same way, sometimes it is an issue of logic and common sense. People have asked us questions about the role of women in our nation building or in our economy and so on and so forth. Part of it is common sense. Our women form close to 54% of our population. Why should I spend time wondering whether these should play the right role in... why don't I just... so straight away seize the opportunity and know that I have a huge base, for production and for growth and for development in the 54%. It's an issue of rights. It's an issue of, simply building on this potential and the actual reality there, and getting where you want to be. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you to hold on a second with your question and ask anybody else who would like a question to ask a question who's not necessarily from Rwanda. I'll take you, the gentleman. Yes? Yes? We've had two Kenyans asking the question, so it would be interesting to see if there's anybody from Rwanda who would like to ask anything.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dr. Ivan Twagirashema, the Vice Chairperson of the Chamber of Industry in Rwanda. During the presentation of Mr. Ali Khan, he presented the continent as a dark continent, but also as a continent of many opportunities. When we look on the picture of the energy supply and the energy demand in East African community, we realize that there is a big gap between the supply and the demand. And this gap is increasing every year. And also, when we go in details, we realize that the electricity is produced from heavy fuel oil, but also hydropower. My first question is that what would be the vision or the politics in that field for a better future in East African community? And the second question is that what would be the role of renewable energies in order to have a better future? Thank you.
Well, I think it is as simple as you've put it. We just have to do what needs to be done and what we largely have the possibility for. Really, in the whole of East Africa, there is a huge potential for energy or for electricity to be generated as we need it. The potential is there. So the question is, why are we not investing in this? Well, some of the argument is it is very expensive, which is very true. It needs a lot of resources. But at the same time, we can also go around that problem by even pooling some of the resources, in fact, which the East African community can help us achieve. If we invested in some of the, say, energy projects together, probably we could make some headways that we haven't been able to do. So each country, each area has kind of struggled with its own demands and possibilities, and sometimes got stuck there. We've sometimes waited for donors who have made promises and have not fulfilled them, or we wait for so many years. You have different projects going on or talked about or designed or planned. We have had this going on for, say, the last 10 years and really coming to nothing. We simply need to look deeply into this matter and look at all possible ways, because indeed we have such high demand. What we are realizing in terms of supply is so low, and indeed the gap keeps widening. There is no question about it. At the same time, there is no way we are going to realize this growth and development that we need without addressing, among other many priorities, this particular one of that. So the vision is, first of all, we need to find all possible ways to deal with this matter, and one of them is to work together, find regional projects and stop, each struggling on our own and coming to nowhere. So we need to work together, and maybe some of the people that may support us may be attracted by seeing that we are working together, and then put the right investments or avail the right resources for us to do that. But we can also have our own resources brought together to realize that. So some of these remain challenges or problems, but they are really opportunities, and we have possibilities for a breakthrough only if we approached it innovatively or found different ways.
So thank you very much. Anybody else?
And renewable energies, again, the renewable energies are also, the sources are there, and in any case, it's a win-win situation for us. We realize energy, we protect our environment, which again we have to rely on for actually, again, as a resource of some of the things we are building on to get the energy. So renewable energies, energy sources are the way to go. So it's very clear, and the possibilities are there. Again, it's a question of planning and thinking properly.
Thank you very much, sir. Any more questions on this end? Let's keep the questions brief. I'm going to ask the lady. Is that your hand up? Yeah, please go ahead. The lady behind there. Yes, you. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Clarice Siribagiza, and I'm the CEO of Hehe Limited. It's a mobile applications development firm. And I'm also a student at the Kigali Institute of Science and Technology. So my question is on skills, the skills gap that you mentioned, Mr. President, and the role that the higher learning institutions could play in actually bridging this gap. We know that ICT plays an important role in our achieving our Vision 2020 goals, and entrepreneurship and innovation, no doubt, also play a significant role. But many of us that will be graduating this year, let's say, will graduate with the mentality of job seeking. And this is mainly because we lack the practical experience from some of the programs that we have at the university. And history has shown, for example, at Stanford University, the role that it played in creating Silicon Valley, as well as MIT and our neighbors in Kenya at the Nairobi University and Strathmore, where they have innovation labs, they have M labs, where students can actually have practical experience before they graduate, where we can, burn out a couple of fuses without having to sacrifice rent or, food on the table. So, is it too much to ask for us being able to have room at our universities to experiment, to innovate without being afraid of failing, room to grow?
Absolutely not. It's not asking too much. And it's a good idea that you're talking about, which I'm also aware has been on the table possible for many years. And in fact, there have been efforts as well for this long to try and create that exactly that makes sense that you're talking about. The question will always be on the side of implementation and probably the wider governance issue where you find some of these problems. But as far as I know, and for quite a long time, there has been effort to exactly do that. But I think there is also still, there are more attempts and efforts to try and achieve that. You are aware of some of the parks that have been created outside the universities, as well as now beginning to emerge in the universities, actually including KIST, for some of the investments that you know that have come up in KIST of recent in the ICT sector and other technological areas. We just need to move beyond what we have achieved this far and create exactly those facilities that can help prepare sufficiently our students. There is, in fact, the development taking place at KIST as well as the University of Butare. The other day, in fact, I have been to 2 universities not so long ago to launch some of these facilities, one by the South Koreans at the University of Butare and the other in KIST under the sponsorship of African Development Bank. But I think what you are talking about rightly is not stopping there but expanding that into the area that would enable the students to have that experience. You are aware of another regional project that is taking place where government, through the Ministry of Education, is partnering with Carnegie Mellon University. They are going to establish a campus here, and it's going to be a regional project. It's not just going to be for Rwandans, it's going to be for the young people at the universities involved in different technologies, and mainly information and communication technologies. And this is is done between the government, Carnegie Mellon, and industry, where companies like Microsoft, IBM, and other companies, a number of them have already shown interest. They are going to set up shop around this campus, and it's already taking shape. It's, you are aware it's coming up near the industrial zone that has been created just on the edge, on the outskirts of this city. So the point is clear. I think the urgency is also clear, probably in terms of implementation and realization of this isn't exactly how you and me would like to see it come out as. So we will try and do our part in trying to push things to happen.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. President. Who has a very, I'd like to take 2 pressing questions from the audience. They're really pressing questions. Pressing questions? Yes, I'll take you, please. And then I'll take one more. Let's just make sure and then I'll come back to you I've called you. Yes, I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Many have passed through the background of my question, so I'll try to bring it in my own words. We have noticed that in this room there's many young entrepreneurs that have good idea, but also there is the fact that these young entrepreneurs do not have the money to do whatever idea they have. They don't have the collateral to do their business the way they want to do it. And also they don't have the platform that will allow them to discuss with the people with the old money. So my question is it possible for the one who shaped the environment to create a hub or a setting or a platform where the people with money can meet with the people with idea so that they can exchange and probably get the monitoring, the wisdom from the old. You have taken the chance with your team, so can you push the business people to take the chance with the young one to come on board with their businesses? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I think we will play our part to make sure that this is the case. In fact, it has been talked about for many years again. I think the idea is well understood, but we have to implement it. When you kept saying we have no money, we have no this, we have no that, I was worried you were going to talk about there being no idea, but now, because that is the key and the starting point. I always believe if there is a good idea, we can always find a way to develop it and to support the people behind the idea achieve something. So, like our colleague here at the panel said, I think it's not all gloom and doom. It's not about no this, no that. No. Once there is an idea, there will also be an idea about how to get the money and get going. There will always be that.
Thank you very much for that. Before we come back to social media and the questions that are going to be asked, there are questions from YouTube. Again, these are questions from President Kagame's YouTube page, which you can find out if you would like to find up-to-date information. I'd like to recognize the fact that this forum today is not just about the East African region. Whereas majority of us are from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda, there are people from outside that region. Can I just see some of you, please? We have a lady from Nigeria. I spoke to her earlier. Please stand up. And just stand up. No, someone else. The other people. Yes, please. Thank you very much. There is someone else there. Okay. These are all people from outside the region of East Africa. And like we said, this is a forum that allows us to exchange ideas as a continent. And thank you very much for standing. You may take your seats now. And it shows you that we are all here to benefit from each other. I'm going to come back to the floor in a moment. In the meantime, though, I'd like to put two questions. The first one is a question from President Kagame's YouTube page from someone called Blogging Forward. This person is in Scotland. The question is, Mr. President, how will African leaders tackle the high cost of internet and telecoms? I wonder if you'd like, I'll ask you that one first and then ask you the second one shortly. But the question is, how will African leaders tackle the high costs of internet and telecoms? This is from Blogging Forward, who is watching us and is in Scotland.
Well, it's already actually tackling that. I'll take the example of our own case. The high cost of internet has come down dramatically and very fast over time. One, because of many people investing in internet and telecom industry and providing different services on a broad scale, that alone, and having allowed the competition in the industry, as has happened here and even happened more in other places, especially if you look at the East African region. That speaks for itself. And if you look at the introduction of and investment in broadband infrastructure that has been realized in the region, that speaks for itself. The cost of internet and telecom services before that, certainly the cost was very high, but we have seen in the last 10 years the right investments made and costs coming down. And yes, we need to bring down that again. And if you look at investments being made in the area of bandwidth that is required for these services in the internet area, for example, the issue has gradually and systematically been addressed. So that's no longer a big problem.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. The next question is from someone called Drews Omondi. He's in Louisiana, and he asks a question. You recommended the reduction of roadblocks in East African countries as they were center or counterproductive for that matter. Are there any other suggestions to improve the movement of people, goods and services and ideas across East Africa?
That has allowing freedom of movement of people and services and has been very key, and these are subjects that have been discussed under the Common Market Protocol, and a number of ideas were floated, and key elements have been agreed across the East African community, all aimed at reducing non-tariff barriers and other obstacles that have impeded either doing business or movement of people. There are still some of the problems, but I think those have been identified and the causes have been identified. So the challenge always comes in implementation. When you are trying to harmonize and coordinate and bring different people, different concerns, and you always find some of these things coming up, but they should not discourage us. We should rather feel more obliged to keep tackling the remaining problems and also get them out of the way. So I think there is a forward movement, there is progress, and we will continue making progress.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm now going to ask Vakesh to ask a question.
Thank you. Mr. President, the problem in sitting in a room with people smarter than you is, if they ask questions before you do, I have nothing left to ask. But, as Eve said very well, thank you to the people of Rwanda, thank you to the RDB folks, and thank you, Mr. President, for having us here. We had a blast. Your Kenyan brother, Titus Naikuni, says, your older Kenyan brother, Titus Naikuni, said, he's still more handsome than you. And he says his hello as well. And he says next. Okay, now, I am not going to ask any questions. All the questions have been asked. First is, the lady over there, I'm not sure when you're graduating, but once you have graduated, please get in touch with Vivian of RDB. This is the condition. As long as Alphonsine, right? Yes. As long as she agrees and the MTN chap, sorry about that, I didn't get your name. As long as the MTN chap agrees, I will give $5,000 into this. So, if you have an idea,
I tell you, I guess vacation is part of the Rwandan culture that's creeping up on the rest of us. Solutions.
So you bring the idea. I will talk to Alphonsine. Hopefully NTM will contribute another 5,000. And you, by the way, you can blow up fuses. Just don't blow them in Kenya. Blow them up here. We don't, Kenyans. I'm sorry. Anyway, our leadership isn't as enlightened. So please, as long as Alphonsine is heading the project, I will go through her. MTN contributes the other 5,000. Mine is in, and Vivian can do it. Now, the next question was that gentleman put it up about, the whole thing about investing. I'm not quite sure what the situation is, but Vivian and I had a discussion yesterday. If there is a project that makes sense, okay, get back to her, she can get back to me, and then we can look at it. For larger sums, I understand, but it has to be a project that is viable. It has to be an idea that you can say, this is what can be done. If that is there, then I am willing to do it. And I was inspired by that lady at the end who said, I don't ask questions, I give solutions.
Yeah.
And hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a good one.
Thank you very much for that. I'd like to conclude by offering one more question to one last person before I hand over. Yes. Anybody else? How do you do this? There's so many hands up. Let me make it two questions. I'm going to ask this gentleman here and the lady here to ask these questions.
Mr. President, my name is Robert Alai. I'm a blogger. I'm in the social media. And my first question is to you regarding social media. You are somebody who's embraced social media a lot in your day-to-day interaction. And you've had an experience with Twitter and maybe Facebook. I'm not sure about Facebook, but Twitter, I know that you've had an experience with different people. What is your perspective on social media, and what would you change in social media? Again, the second question is that I'm somebody born from a family with many women, 20 women and only five men. So, my dad was a teacher, and he would rather take the ladies to school than take the men to school. I would like to know your perspective on affirmative action, because you find that there's too much focus on the girl child development, and sometimes at the expense of the boy child. That the girl child is supposed to be seduced even during marriage or during courting by the boy child, but the boy child is too scared because the girl child is too emancipated. Yeah. So I would love to know your perspective on that.
What would I want to change? I think social media has brought a very important dimension as far as I'm concerned. It has enabled all of us. It has really made, as the term was used earlier, the world flat. It has flattened the world. Whoever has an idea has a way of expressing it, has a way of communicating it, and in the same process, even if you're not communicating it, you are learning it from somebody else. So it has, it has shifted this whole belief of, the whole world being represented by a few enlightened fellows. In the media, there are those who, just anoint themselves to be the representative of all ideas. And they must be looked to be the ones to provide with authority the truth about everything. I don't like that, personally. I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea that this the truth about everything in this world is in the hands of a very few. So the fact that the whole world has been empowered to interact, to express themselves, to argue, is very good. Well, people have, as we have noticed also, while I'm saying this is good and it still remains to a great extent, some people have also used wrongly or negatively this media, but that comes with the nature of it, and so we can't just say we change our idea or opinion about it just because there are people who are using. It's like you find people using wrongly many things that would have been for good effect in the end. So I don't think there is much I can change about it, or I would complain about social media. And as you said, well, if there are things I would change, somehow I manage that from my end. Just as an example, between Twitter and Facebook, I prefer being more on Twitter than Facebook, because Facebook tends to be a little bit more intrusive and goes deep into. So but instead of campaigning against it, I will just not use it. It's so simple. So, but those who want to be there should be there. That's their business. So I'm less there than I am on Twitter. But that is now anybody can manage it from their end, rather than wanting it to be treated differently. So the starting point for me is a good thing. I like it. It enables me, and it has done so. If I'm sure you followed that, I have had sometimes some arguments with the
Guardian for that.
Oh yes, and you see what is very interesting again, which I think the social media has kind of exposed or sorted out. The same fellows sometimes who have accused or misrepresented others for being this or that and dictatorial, stifling the freedom of expression, free media, and so on and so forth, are the same people when you engage in a debate, it's as if you are committing a crime. So how can they argue for freedom and they don't accept my freedom to express myself? You see? They complain about my own freedom to express myself or to argue with them, as if actually somebody is trying to say, no, what I have said about you or about others is final. You should accept it. And you shouldn't complain or you shouldn't argue about it. I mean, this certainly has been exposed by social media. It has kind of disempowered those people who actually in a veiled way want to dictate their opinion on others, and the social media has empowered the rest of the world to express themselves and be there to defend themselves or to support whatever they want to support or argue whatever they want to argue in a way they choose to do it. And then in the end, the general opinion will be formed, and that is the basis of the judgment between what is wrong or what is right. So on the question of women, You are right. You see, first of all, we've been dealing with imbalance historically all along. In fact, while maybe in your part of the world, certain things might have happened in a certain way, in other parts of the world, things happened a different way. I know to the situation I'm used to. In fact, if you have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, in the part of the world I know, they would prefer to educate the 2 boys and leave the 2 girls at home, and in their mind they are waiting for them to get married, and that's it. This is what has happened. So what we have done is to make sure that, no, girls and boys should be educated, should be given these opportunities equally. We are not saying let's give more opportunities to girls than boys. We are saying, no, let's lift up the girls that have been left behind for various reasons and bring them and level the field for these people to experience the same opportunity. And so this is what we keep trying to do, and we are conscious about this balance. You will always not get it 100%, but the idea is to not leave anybody behind, girl or boy. They should all be given equal opportunity. They will always be good at everything the same way, and so on and so forth. So, and then later on, life will sort things out differently.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. President. Out of curiosity, though, sir, what gadgets do you keep in order to sort of indulge in your social media? What do you use?
BlackBerry, and I have an iPad. iPad 2. To be specific.
If D'Souza, what do you say about that? Exactly. There you are. President Paul Kagame has a BlackBerry and an iPad too. Excellent example for what technology can do.
Last time we met, it was still the old one, but later on I got to the two.
And for with your permission, sir, may I say which one it was? It was a BlackBerry Torch, so you know.
I mean, the time we met, the iPad was the old one.
Oh yes, of course. So he keeps with the trends.
I still keep the Torch, but I'll change it maybe by end of the year.
You hear that? I love that about President Kagame, the fact that he's switched on as far as Ali Khan called it 21st century leadership. You know, engaging people at that level, taking advantage of what opportunities exist. And also, Mr. President, why did you start tweeting? Why was it important for you to open a Twitter account and start getting onto Twitter and tweeting and responding to those questions?
And did you do it, but did you talk to anyone about it, or you just opened the account?
No, I talked to somebody about it, or somebody talked to me about it. It was in the process of modernizing systems in my office, which we always regularly do, and in the area of communication, whether internal or broader than that. And so we are looking at the communications and media strategy, and then the tools that would and the skills necessary for that to be delivered. So I had many of my staff involved with that, and knowing also that I'm very strongly behind the use and development of technology in Rwanda. In fact, I have the ICT ministry under my office, so I follow very closely how that is delivering on the mission we have on this across government, and how this is delivering to the ordinary people. in particular in this area, but also what this area can deliver largely for our social and economic development. And by the way, beyond that, I'm also a co-chair on the Broadband Commission. I had been asked by the UN and the Secretary General of the UN to do that. So I'm co-chairing two commissions, one of the Millennium Development Goals, but another one particularly, Broadband Commission under the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, together with the UN Secretary General, asked me to do that. So even by these responsibilities, I'm reminded not only to give political backing, but I'm also very much connected with this, even in a broader sense. I like promoting technology generally for development. So in my office, and in fact, strangely, if I may use that, even in my family. So the need to go on Twitter and Facebook and others came jointly from my office as well as from my family. My own children were the ones interesting me, and sometimes I enjoy being educated by them on some of these tools and modern tools of communication. So I have tutors in my own house and my own home. So that's how the two came together, the official demand, the office, but also the private side of my family came together, and that's how the use of Twitter came up. In fact, my first Twitter account was opened by my own children. And
really?
Yes. Back at home. So that's how it started.
Okay, one of the things I realized when I had the opportunity to interview President Kagame was his music tastes. Has anybody listened to that interview? Who listened to that interview? Yes. What song do you remember the most from that interview? Black Eyed Peas was one of the songs. There was a song. There was also another song. What song do you remember? Gau? Yes, Gau was another song President Kagame picked. And then he also picked Distant Relatives. That's Damian Marley and Nas. That's another song. So I imagine that you spend a bit of time on YouTube as well, seeing this video. Okay. Now, as we go on, I've been advised that we can have a few more minutes.
I have a lot of this stuff on my iPod.
And I remember one of the things from that particular interview. I remember when I was asking President Kagame to give me a list of the songs that he'd like included in that interview, he said, "Let me see what is on my iPod." I was like, "What? You have an iPod as well?" And one of the things that has come from that leadership by a very technologically savvy leader is I learned from a friend of mine who's seated somewhere there, Lucy, who loves President Kagame to death. And she told me that one of the things that Rwanda will be able to benefit from is whichever part of Rwanda you're in, if you're treated in one part of Rwanda and you move to another part of Rwanda, your medical records will be called up from your previous treatment. I'll stop there because it can be a bit depressing, but Rwanda is clearly benefiting from a very technologically savvy leader. Now, moving on though, back to you, can we then ask a couple of more questions? Yes, madam, if I may, please.
Thank you. My name is Kasamangela Claire. I lead an organization of young people living with HIV. I have also been among 10 top leaders in HIV. And I've been called to join I have been called to join the UN High Commission on HIV Prevention recently in May. As a young person born and grown with HIV, I'm glad that I'm not a burden to my country, to my nation, but I'm a solution where I can even give my ideas outside of Rwanda. And with that, I'm committed to mobilize a generation of young people born with HIV and all young people living with HIV to join to join their hands to stop the pandemic. Because as we are talking about development and economy, it's not fair to forget that AIDS is a big barrier. As we have seen many people dying in 90s, even in 2000, we have lost many lives because of AIDS. And Your Excellency, last time we met in New York at the UN high-level meeting, and young people, we were claiming for leadership. I was a little bit pretending because I knew that something is being... because I had to be homogeneous to the group, I was little bit pretending. We want leadership. That was what we were talking. But I'm glad that we are being integrated as young people living with HIV are being helped, supported by the National AIDS Control Commission and other stakeholders. But now what concerns me is about the speed. I'm talking about the speed. The speed. We made a statement, we made a UN political declaration where we said young people living with HIV and young people in general are going to lead the HIV fight. Now, we want to see this being much more a reality in terms of policing, in terms of being integrated in planning, strategic planning, so that our ideas, our wishes go together with the other wishes of other thoughts of our leaders. Because you may sit and plan, and then you plan to fail because you forgot what we think, what we want, and what we see as a solution to the AIDS pandemic. Because I believe that we are the only one having the solution to stop the spread of HIV. And we are very committed to bring about solution. My second is not a question, but it's about speed again. I want to see education in Rwanda becoming much more, transforming from formal education where people are having degrees, where you're having people with very high many papers in the box. But I'm planning, I'm seeing a country where people are having vocational skills. I want to know the speed because I know something is going on.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, really, I think you are talking about all ideas are there, institutions are there, and we are talking about the pace, at which we should be moving to get to the results. And I think that's a fair comment, that there is always need to review and look back and check whether our commitments are being matched by the will and practice to actually do some of these things. So with HIV/AIDS, I think the progress in our country, and I'm sure to which you have contributed, will speak really for the situation. And we can continue to do even better and more by being more inclusive and involving people and bringing on board the same ideas you are talking about. So I think that is what you want to see: more involvement, more ideas, but more practice based on But that's why I think there is good progress also in our countries, because to a great extent, I think what you are talking about is being done. Whether there is room for improvement and people can do more and better, I think I'm happy to insist that our people do better than probably they are doing.
Thank you very much. We'll take 2 more questions to conclude this. I'm going to take the question from the lady from Nigeria, and then one last person. That gentleman at the very back, the one next to the camera, he's put up his hand a few times, I noticed. So I'll ask you to ask the question and then hand over to.
Thank you very much. Good day, Your Excellency. Thank you for having us here. When I was leaving home yesterday, I remember my cousin saying to me, "What are you going to do in Rwanda? You'd better pack a lot of chips with you. You'll probably be hungry by the time you come back home." But I dare say that it's been one of the warmest experiences I've had in my short journey in life. My question to you, sir, as a young person and a business owner, primarily a farmer in my country, I would like to know what your government will do, because I would like to see a situation whereby a young person from West Africa like myself who comes into your country and I see huge opportunities can come to your country and also implement or execute or be a part of the business or enterprise community within your country, because the opportunities are enormous and the barriers as it regards young people, the challenges are there. Would your government be able to look into creating ease for young people to integrate businesses across the region, and also to support what the other lady who said she was a student said? Will there be room for us to have exchanges as young people at the regional level, where a group of us who have experience in business in our home countries can come and interact with people within your country, young people within the same age bracket, and we can share experiences? And some of them, you can collaborate with our government to bring some of them to our home countries and work in some of the enterprise parks we have developed, and we can all begin to move this continent forward. Because the truth is, like I said at the Heads of State Summit in July, that I am sick and tired of seeing, I'm sorry with due respect if there are foreigners in the room, Americans come to our continent and try to prefer solutions to our problems. I think it's about time that we as young people take our destinies in our hands and take responsibility for the growth of our continent and remove the gloom and the darkness with which is the eye they look at us as a continent and move our continent forward. I believe that the solutions lie in the bellies and the hearts of every young person present here today and those who are outside. What we just seek, because you are a very wonderful person, listening to you and following your story, we believe that you can be a channel to help us reach out to other African leaders to really listen to our heart cry. If you take the lead, sir, I believe the other leaders will follow you, because truly you're a change agent. Thank you.
I think that is the point you are making. Certainly, we need to, and we try to do it in our small way here in Rwanda. For example, the interaction among the youth of the continent and so on and so forth. I'll start by letting you know, for example, even starting with the immigration, simple things like immigration reforms. We have, well, maybe for the East Africans who are not aware of this, but for a long time, in fact, our country has removed things like work permits or other barriers that may create obstacles for people in our region coming and over to Rwanda to work here, and later on doing business also is made easier for them, for people to come here. So the movement of people, of Africans, even beyond East Africa, to Rwanda, we've done our best to try and simplify that because of that same belief that you are expressing. So not only do we believe in this, not only do we talk about it, we actually try and do some of the things that, and if we can do all of the things required, so much the better, and we will try and do that to make sure that Africans, East Africans, and others find home here whenever they choose to visit or to come and do whatever they want to do. This is the starting point, and that's how some of the things we are talking about would be realized. The second part in your statement, which is key, and let me take advantage of this moment to say it once again. I have said it several times. And of course, it is also in the hands of the young people, but not only the young people, even all of us. You see, we have heard and said this several times, all of us, wherever you go, whichever country on the continent. People rightly tired and talking about and speaking out loud on how our countries or our continent is managed, or there are always attempts to manage us from as outsiders may want it, just because this is the rich world out there and so on and so forth. When they can give us aid or when they can give us this, they also follow that and try to manage our lives as well. Now, it's not enough to reject that, to just say, no, we are tired of this, we don't want this. No. It is always better to support that by actually going ahead and doing the very things we know we should be doing to create in ourselves that capacity and to be able to achieve some of the things we want to achieve, including that independence. You see, nobody's going to have to hand over or to hand to you the freedoms you want, or the independence you want, or the respect that you deserve. You must present yourself in that way. You must do the very things that actually remind the other one that, no, here we deserve respect. And people will see it through how you hold yourself, how you do your own things, and the demands that you make clearly, so that whoever wants to look down upon you will hesitate and say, no, I think this will not work here. What do I mean? For example, and you ask people here in our country, that's something we have tried to do. It has earned us probably as many admirers as those who don't like us for that. And that is, yes, I don't care where you come from, China, America, Europe, or wherever. You want to do something here? Yes. First of all, is it useful to us? I don't mind if it is useful to you as well, and if we all get along very well, and all benefit. But I don't want you to come to do here what is useful to you and what is not useful to me. I'll tell you, you are in the wrong place. Yes, that's what we have tried to do here. We say you are welcome, and it is in every sector, even how we deal with our partners. We are able to tell them, we say, this you are proposing to us is not good for us. But we know it is good for you. So let's find something that is good for us and good for you. And that's what we should do. But if there is anything that is not good for us, we will tell anybody straight in their face that we don't need it. And probably we don't need them. So this has created all sorts of problems, but we know that is the high price we must pay for our dignity and for our freedoms and for the respect we deserve to have in determining our own future. So it is a struggle that goes on forever. But the best way to struggle is really to be steadfast, is also to strive to do what is right, not only in your eyes, but also what you anticipate is right, even in the eyes of the other people from elsewhere. And then go ahead and do it. If we are talking about good governance, if you are talking about fighting corruption, we must be seen to be doing it. You can't just tell people off and say, no, I don't want, and then in the end you are caught up in the very things you are saying you are fighting. So you need to avoid that, because if you are caught up in that, then it has a tendency to undermine your capacity, your strength to be able to deliver for yourself whatever you want to deliver. So it is not just an argument, it's something that must form the kind of life we live and must be seen to live. This is where the difference lies with many people or many places. If you want justice, you must be seen to be giving justice to others. You can't say, I want justice, and then you are doing things that infringe on other people's rights at the same time. So we have to walk the talk, all of us. Isn't it? Yes. And really it is important if the young people of our country, of East Africa, of our continent, of Africa, understand this and integrate it in all they do in their daily lives or in their professions. It is about the mindset, it's about the attitude, it's about also having the guts to speak out and speak up, for some of these things that we... And really, it should be easy to understand. I mean, there are many examples and there are many questions we should be asking based on Africa. Why? Why always feel marginalized? Why is it a place always that is crying for sympathy or looking for sympathy? It's a place where people go to express magnanimity and, and then we must appreciate and we must, So, all people who have means or who have different capacities, it's like you must go to Africa to show these people love. We are people who need to be loved, to be, and the moment we don't say, fine, let's appreciate it, whoever wants to contribute to what is good for us, we also have to do it strategically and make sure, yes, we accept it, but accept it by allowing this to contribute, to push us to another level where we want to be, and not just remain as, we may end up creating Africa as a big zoo, where the whole of the world comes to see, yeah? And take photos and, you know, and then go back. No. If this is a normal life, we should be doing that to the other world as well. Isn't it? Yes. But it can't be one way. We shouldn't accept it. Yes, people without self-pride are the ones who can allow that. We Africans shouldn't lack that and shouldn't allow that to, shouldn't lack the self-pride, you know.
Thank you very much for that, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
there is.
You know, one day when I'm president of Uganda and someone comes to preach to me about freedom of press, I'll ask them if their phones have been hacked or... Next time someone comes to me and asks me about freedom, I'll ask them whether they had riots that caused commotion in their cities. Because that's the reality in those worlds where people come up to us and try to teach us how to sort out our own problems, isn't it? That's their realities, and we have our own realities. And thank you very much, President Kagame, for showing us that Africans can actually find solutions to their own problems. I would now like to ask the person who's going to ask us the last question. And before you do that, let me just observe, and I think it's imperative that we say, it is wrong for anybody to suggest that President Kagame is stifling the media or is fighting media freedom. Is there any president in the world that has responded to your tweet, Terian? Any other? Robert Alai here is a very controversial blogger, this man sitting here. Has any president in the world other than President Kagame responded to your tweet? How do you say that President Kagame is actually fighting? Sorry? Okay, he did today. But are you sure that he's the one who did it? Are you sure that he's the one who tweeted you back? Okay, great. President Kikwete is taking examples. He's learning. Also, just another point to note. How do you say that there is no media freedom or media platforms are being curtailed when you have a president who is pushing for internet to penetrate every single village in Rwanda? Which is a bigger threat, a few newspapers or the internet? A man like Robert Alai, this man here says some really harsh things sometimes. He would have an opportunity to express himself, wouldn't he? So, first of all, let's just categorically say that President Kagame did not have a template in 1994 when he took over Rwanda from which to learn how to run a country like this one. Let's just salute him for the work that has been done in Rwanda because the examples speak for themselves. And as far as the media is concerned, if Rwandans don't want it, they don't want it. They know what is good for them. That's why we are all here to learn from the Rwandan experience. I'd like to ask that person, the gentleman, to ask the final question before Mr. Ali Khan Sachu comes to make closing remarks.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Niemungeri Iridebrand. I'm a student in the National University of Rwanda. And at the same time, I'm the chairperson of the Toastmasters International at my university. My question concerns environment. Your Excellency, we know that a lot have been done to protect our environment. And all of us, we are proud of how things are happening in Rwanda, in Kigali. Kigali is being developed and the world of Rwanda. But this development implies huge volumes of wastes. And we are not observing waste treatment plants growing in Rwanda as other industry fields are being developed. Now, at a good time like this, I'm wondering, Your Excellency, what is the possibility of the government to make this building of treatment plant of waste a very big business to protect our environment? Thank you.
Sure. The government, what the government has done is to put in place a policy that will have to be implemented or is being implemented. But I would like the private sector to play a bigger role in making this a business. I hope the RDB people here are listening, and I'm told they've been inviting people to invest in this area of waste management and so on. But just an example, if there's a place called Nyanza outside the city here, which used to have a mountain of waste. If you reach there today, you will see how it has been managed under these efforts, even though what really needs to be done relative to the magnitude of the problem is not being done sufficiently. But I'm also aware of the fact that the city of Kigali, and I don't know whether the mayor is around or others, they are investing, and they have invested. There has been a project underway to sufficiently manage waste in the whole of the city, even as divided by the districts in the city. But I agree with you, there is a need for more attention to be paid to the pace at which things are moving and are being implemented in that area, because it's a serious problem. But at the same time, it's a huge opportunity for people to invest in this area, as the one problem is being solved. Money is being made as well in the business. So we will continue to pursue what you've raised.
Thank you very much, President Paul Kagame, for making time to speak to us. A round of applause for President Paul Kagame. When you see me dashing back and forth, I'm being told, we have time. Don't feel pressure. The president wants to continue engaging you, and so we need to thank him very much for making that time. At this point, I would just like to say that for those of you who are tweeting, remember the hashtag is Mindspeak. This is going around the world at the moment. If you want to follow it at all, the conversations that have been taking place, it has generated a lot of interest on Twitter. Just hashtag Mindspeak, and you will find it all on there. And I would also like to mention Ali Khan for the president as a sign of gratitude. I'd like to invite him, as well as his lovely wife, to present this gift before Ali Khan proceeds to make closing remarks.
Can I present? Where is Boniface?
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 Yes. Oh, he's here.
Sorry. President Kagame, these were photographs taken by Boniface Mwangi, and he wanted me to present them to you.
Oh, thank you.
Look, support very
okay. Thank you.
Could you see the pictures?
Yes, sure. Yes, quite nice pictures.
That one is nice.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Even though Naikun is still more handsome than me. I didn't say so. He said so.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point,
thank you very much for.
I'll now invite Ali Khan to make the final remarks as we close.
Thanks. When I was walking in with the president, I said to the president, in my world, you're like a rock star. You could forget Bono, whom we met, you will remember, in Nairobi when you came to the Nation Conference and I found you there. I said, but in my world, you're a rock star, and as you can see why he is. I think he's incredibly coherent. I think he is incredibly inspirational. And I'm really grateful that you gave me the opportunity to hold my Mindspeak here in Kigali and take it into the region. When I sat and listened to what everybody had to say, I think we should just set up a private equity company right here and now. We've got enough people here to hold my Mindspeak here in Kigali and take it into the region. When I sat and listened to what everybody had to say, I think we should just set up a private equity company right here and now. We've got enough people here. Everyone can put in 5,000 or whatever they can afford, and I can guarantee you we'd make a lot of money because we got the intellectual capital here to make it happen. But I'd really like to go back to the President and say, once again, thank you. It has been a pleasure getting to know you, both virtually and now finally in person. The most exciting thing I think about Twitter is when you go from online to offline, and you took me offline in the most wonderful manner today. I think we went well beyond our time, and I wouldn't have wanted to stop you. I would have wanted to keep you here. Once again, I wish you every success. I think you have a very clear vision. I think you have a wonderful team around you, and they speak huge volumes about you. I would like very quickly just to thank Alan for being a wonderful master of ceremonies. I would like to thank the panelists. I would like to thank the crowd that was here, because without the crowd, we're nowhere. So I would like to thank you all for making the time and coming. And I would like to thank everybody everywhere in the world who tuned in to the live stream. But most of all, I would like to thank our very own African rock star, President Paul Kagame.
Thank you very much. President Paul Kagame, you might want to know as well that there are very many people tweeting in the room. How many are tweeting today? All these people are tweeting about the event today. And thank you very much for making that contribution. And also remember, it's hashtag Mindspeak. At this juncture, Mr. President, on behalf of everybody else, and on Ali Khan's behalf and on behalf of the team, we'd like to ask you, if you may, to join us for a cocktail. Thank you very much for accepting. And everybody else, let's just have a cocktail. We have a cocktail outside the room.
Alan, the President wants to say one word.
Oh, yes, sir, certainly.
Yeah, other than the introductory remarks I made, it would be unfair if we just ended without me thanking all of you once again. As Ali Khan said, the happening of this event wasn't entirely accidental, but in a way something close to that, because indeed we just tweeted, and like I've done with many of you here, whom I wanted to specifically thank, by the way. I have people I have known just by, different names on Twitter, the Paul Tasker, who could tweet even at 4 o'clock in the morning. He'll tell you that. And sometimes, on one hand, it was a reason for him to wonder whether it is me. But actually, on the other hand, it was proof that it was me, because probably you wouldn't find many people awake at 4 o'clock in the morning and tweeting. So I just wanted to thank everybody. I know, especially, I have had a big number of people we tweet from Kenya, and a number from Uganda, and others from East Africa and beyond, and South Africa and everywhere. So I wanted to, before you close completely, I stood up to just say thank you very much, and I hope Ali Khan and the whole team, we've been together on at this table, I wanted to say thank you, and let me suggest, I hope you look into that, the logistics of it and other things you can base on. Maybe you should go with a challenge to think how we can broaden the conversation and also continue it into the future, and broaden it to cover East Africa, and I'm glad it has been done in the form of bringing Mindspeak here in Kigali. Normally, actually it started by my invitation to me to go to Kenya, and for some reason the dates they were suggesting at the time couldn't work for me, so I said, but why don't you one day bring Mindspeak to Kigali actually? And I said maybe it might be easier, but at the same time might even be better because it covers East Africa in a real sense by making it representative or going to different places. But I hope you can think of how this broadening continues and how we can continue the conversation and repeat the conversation as many times as we can have it. So have a good evening and thank you so much.
I think President Kagame deserves a bigger round of applause than that.